The relentless twin suns blazed over the arid wasteland of Solaris 7, their unforgiving heat shimmering across the endless dunes. Commander Rylan Voss adjusted the visor of his sleek black exo-armor, the reflective surface shielding his face from the blinding glare. His armor, reinforced with top-tier military composites, kept his body cool despite the oppressive temperature. Above him, his spacecraft, the Eclipse Runner, hovered low, casting a fleeting shadow over the golden sea of sand. "Another dead end," Rylan muttered, his voice muffled inside the helmet. His patience was running thin after 3 days of searching for a supposed treasure cache, reported to be aboard a downed alien freighter. So far, all he'd found was a monotonous expanse of sand. The sudden, insistent beeping of his scanner snapped him out of his brooding. An energy signature spiked on the display, a powerful one, buried roughly 20 meters below the surface. "Well, this just got interesting," Rylan murmured, a wry grin forming as he brought the Eclipse Runner to a soft landing. The craft's landing gears sank slightly into the soft terrain before stabilizing. Grabbing his grav shovel, a high-tech device capable of moving vast quantities of material, he stepped into the desert heat. The sand crunched underfoot as he made his way toward the signal. "If this turns out to be another chunk of junk, I swear," he grumbled as he activated the shovel. The device emitted a low hum, creating a controlled gravitational field that began shifting layers of sand. Bit by bit, the sand gave way to reveal something extraordinary, a metallic sphere about 3 meters in diameter. Its polished surface shimmered in the harsh sunlight, untouched by time. "Jackpot," Rylan whispered, excitement flaring in his chest. But as the last of the sand fell away, his triumphant grin faded. This wasn't a treasure chest or a container of artifacts. It was an escape pod, its design elegant and unlike anything Rylan had encountered. Intricate patterns wove across its surface, almost as if the metal was alive. Through the crystalline viewport, a figure was visible. Rylan leaned closer, brushing away the fine sand clinging to the glass. Inside was a woman, or at least a humanoid being. Her skin was a luminous silver, her long, flowing hair an iridescent white. She was dressed in a sleek, black suit that seemed to merge seamlessly with her form, and her expression was serene, as if caught in a peaceful dream. Rylan's breath hitched. She was alive. His scanner confirmed it, a faint but steady pulse of life. Without hesitation, he retrieved his plasma cutter. The crystalline material resisted, but eventually it gave way with a sharp crack. Cool, pressurized air hissed out, carrying a scent that was both alien and intoxicating, like rain on an unearthly flower. The woman stirred, her lashes fluttering open to reveal eyes of piercing blue, like frozen oceans. She gasped softly, her first breath of fresh air in what must have been decades or longer. "Easy," Rylan said, his tone gentle as he extended a hand to help her. "You're safe now." Her gaze locked on him, curiosity flashing across her delicate features. "You're human," she said, her voice melodic, resonant in a way that sent chills down his spine. "And you're definitely not," Rylan replied, removing his helmet to reveal his rugged face and dark, wind-swept hair. "Commander Rylan Voss. And you are?" She hesitated before replying. "I am Kaelira." Her voice carried an otherworldly grace as she accepted his hand, stepping out of the pod with surprising strength. "And I believe, Commander, that I owe you my life." Before Rylan could respond, a distant roar drew his attention. A wall of orange and gold loomed on the horizon, the beginnings of a sandstorm. "We need to move," he said, pulling up his visor display. The storm was advancing too quickly for them to make it back to the Eclipse Runner. His eyes scanned the area, landing on the shadowed entrance of what appeared to be a cave or ruin carved into a nearby rock formation. "There," he shouted, pointing. "We can shelter there until the storm passes." They moved swiftly, Kaelira's grace belying the alien terrain beneath her feet. The wind picked up, stinging their exposed skin and thickening the air with swirling dust. Rylan shielded Kaelira with one arm, guiding her through the growing chaos. The cave turned out to be more than just a hollow refuge. As they stepped inside, bioluminescent glyphs illuminated the walls, casting the chamber in a soft, ethereal glow. The architecture was ancient and alien, but the glyphs pulsed with an undeniable energy, as if still alive. Precursor symbols, Kaelira breathed, tracing the glowing patterns with her silver fingers. This is one of their sanctuaries. Precursors? Rylan asked as he secured the entrance against the storm. A civilization older than time, she explained, her eyes gleaming with wonder. They seeded life across the galaxy. Their ruins still hold power, even millennia after they disappeared. As if in response, the chamber hummed to life. The air cleared, the temperature regulated itself, and a soft warmth enveloped them. "Well, that's convenient," Rylan remarked, removing his helmet and shaking out a cascade of sand. Kaelira turned to him, her movements slow and deliberate, her luminous skin reflecting the chamber's soft light. "How long do storms last here?" "Could be hours," he replied, leaning back against the smooth wall. She stepped closer, her expression unreadable but her presence magnetic. "I can think of worse company to be stranded with," she said softly, her voice weaving through the air like a melody. Rylan's pulse quickened. He managed to grin, though her proximity was disarming. "You're not exactly hard to look at yourself." Kaelira's laugh was like chimes on the wind. "Humans," she said, her blue eyes locked on his. "So young as a species, so full of passion and fire." "We do our best," he said, his voice lowering. Her gaze softened, and she closed the distance between them. "It's what makes you extraordinary," she whispered. "Your emotions, your capacity for connection, your willingness to risk everything for what you believe in." He felt drawn to her, captivated by the mixture of vulnerability and strength in her voice. "And what about your people?" he asked. "Are they all as curious about humans as you are?" She hesitated, a shadow crossing her features. "My people value order, logic, and control. They've forgotten what it means to feel, to take risks. It's why I left, why I wanted to understand your kind." "Sounds like you're a bit of a rebel," Rylan said, brushing a strand of her luminous hair from her face. Kaelira leaned into his touch, her skin warm despite its silver sheen. "Perhaps," she said softly, "but I believe life is meant to be lived, not just endured." Their eyes met, and the distance between them vanished. The kiss that followed was unlike anything Rylan had ever known, a collision of two worlds, two souls, driven by the same fundamental need for connection. When they finally pulled apart, Kaelira's skin glowed brighter than ever. She smiled, her voice carrying a teasing lilt. "I must say, Commander, humans are surprising." Rylan laughed, his voice rich with newfound warmth. "That makes two of us." Chapter 2. The Legacy Awakened. The storm raged outside the alien sanctuary, the howling winds shaking the reinforced entrance as if testing its ancient strength. Inside, the air was calm, almost serene. The soft glow of the precursor glyphs illuminated the chamber, casting shifting patterns of light and shadow across the smooth, metallic walls. Rylan adjusted his position on the ground, leaning back against the cool wall. He watched Kaelira as she examined the glyphs, her silver fingers gliding over the intricate carvings. She moved with an effortless grace that mesmerized him, as though the air itself bent to accommodate her presence. "You seem familiar with this place," Rylan said, breaking the silence. Kaelira glanced back at him, her blue eyes shimmering in the soft light. "Not this specific structure, but my people have studied precursor artifacts for centuries. Their legacy is scattered across the galaxy, hidden in places like this. Few are as well preserved as this one." She paused, her expression contemplative. The precursors were extraordinary beings. They weren't just creators, they were visionaries. They believed in nurturing life in all its forms. This sanctuary was likely meant as a refuge, a safe haven for those in need. "Convenient timing, then," Rylan quipped, running a hand through his dark hair. "If it weren't for this storm, we'd be stuck out there in the middle of a death trap." Kaelira smiled faintly, but didn't respond. Instead, She turned her attention back to the glowing symbols. Her fingers paused over a particularly elaborate cluster of glyphs. As she touched them, the entire chamber seemed to hum, the light intensifying for a moment before settling into a steady glow. "What did you do?" Rylan asked, standing and instinctively reaching for the sidearm holstered at his hip. "Relax, Commander," she said, her tone calm but amused. "This place recognizes life. It's responding to us?" "Responding how?" he asked, his voice edged with suspicion. Kaelira stepped back as a section of the wall shifted, the seamless metal folding in on itself to reveal a hidden compartment. Inside was a pedestal, atop which sat a crystalline orb. The orb pulsed with a faint inner light, its glow eerily synchronized with the glyphs on the walls. Rylan approached cautiously. "What is it?" "A memory core," Kaelira whispered, her voice filled with awe. "A fragment of precursor knowledge. It could contain anything. Star charts, history, advanced technology." She trailed off, her gaze fixed on the glowing sphere. "Anything dangerous?" Rylan asked, narrowing his eyes. Kaelira glanced at him, her expression unreadable. The precursors weren't malicious, but their creations have been misused before. "Knowledge is a double-edged sword, Commander." Rylan studied her for a moment. Then the orb. "So, what do we do with it?" "We access it," Kaelira said simply. "Is that safe?" She tilted her head, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Do you ever do anything without a little risk?" Rylan sighed. "Fair point." Kaelira stepped closer to the pedestal, her hands hovering over the orb. She closed her eyes, and the glyphs on the walls brightened in response. Rylan could feel the air shift, an almost imperceptible vibration that seemed to resonate in his bones. The orb flared to life, projecting a cascade of holographic images into the air. Stars and galaxies spun around them, forming a breathtaking tapestry of the universe. In the center of it all, a massive structure took shape, an impossibly large station or construct, glowing with the same bioluminescent energy as the glyphs. "That's huge," Rylan muttered, his eyes wide. Kaelira's expression hardened. "It's a precursor ark," she said, "a repository of their greatest creations. It was said to hold the key to their advanced technology, their philosophies, and their secrets. Why does it look like it's still active?" Rylan asked, pointing to the glowing lights on the holographic construct. "Because it is," Kaelira replied, her voice quiet but tense. "And if this memory core is showing it to us, it means the ark has been found or reactivated." "That sounds like bad news," Rylan said grimly. Kaelira nodded. "It could be. The precursors vanished long ago, but not before seeding their knowledge across countless worlds. If someone has accessed the ark, it might not be for noble reasons." The hologram shifted, zooming in on the ark. Kaelira leaned closer, her eyes narrowing as she studied the details. "There's a location marker," she said. "Coordinates. The ark isn't far from here." Rylan frowned. "You're saying we could actually get to it?" "If we leave as soon as the storm clears," Kaelira said, turning to face him. Her expression was resolute, but there was an undercurrent of urgency in her voice. "This isn't just an opportunity, Commander. It's a responsibility. If the ark has been compromised, we need to stop whoever is tampering with it before it's too late." Rylan folded his arms, his gaze shifting between her and the hologram. "You're asking me to walk into the unknown, on the word of an alien I just met." Kaelira stepped closer, her blue eyes locking with his. "You trusted me enough to free me from that pod. Trust me now, Commander. If the ark falls into the wrong hands, it could mean the end of countless worlds, yours included." The weight of her words settled over him. He wanted to argue, to resist being pulled into what sounded like a dangerous and impossible mission. But something about her conviction, her passion, struck a chord deep within him. "Fine," he said at last. "We'll check it out. But if this turns into a suicide mission, don't say I didn't warn you." Kaelira smiled, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. "Thank you, Rylan." He nodded, turning back to the hologram. "I'll prep the ship as soon as the storm clears. You'd better have a plan for what we're walking into." Kaelira's smile grew faintly mischievous. "Plans are overrated. Besides, isn't improvisation a human specialty? Rylan snorted. Great. I'm teaming up with an optimist. Outside, the storm raged on. But inside the sanctuary, a new purpose had taken root. As the hologram continued to spin, projecting the coordinates of the precursor arc, both Rylan and Kaelira knew they were on the brink of something far larger than themselves, a discovery that could change the course of history. Chapter 3. The Sands of Revelation. The storm subsided by dawn, leaving the desert eerily quiet. The golden sands stretched endlessly, rippling with faint traces of the powerful winds that had torn across the surface only hours before. Rylan stood at the mouth of the alien sanctuary, the edges of his exo-armor dusted with sand. He scanned the horizon with a practiced eye, his helmet visor displaying environmental readings. Behind him, Kaelira emerged from the chamber, her silver hair catching the soft light of the rising twin suns. She had exchanged her stasis suit for an outfit she'd fashioned from spare fabric and materials scavenged from the sanctuary, a mix of functional and elegant, perfectly tailored to her form. The storm's cleared, Rylan said without turning. We've got a clear window to head for the Ark. Kaelira stepped beside him, her gaze following his. The sanctuary systems have calibrated the coordinates. It's about 3 hours by air, assuming your ship can handle the terrain. Rylan smirked. The stellar shadow is more than capable. But I'm still not sure what we're walking into. Kaelira placed a hand on his arm, her touch cool yet reassuring. Neither am I. But we can't let fear stop us. The Ark holds more than just answers. It holds power. Power that could destroy or save worlds. Let's hope we're in time to tip the balance, Rylan replied. They made their way back to the stellar shadow, which remained partially buried in the sand from the storm. Rylan activated the ship's systems, and with a low hum, the vessel came to life. Kaelira climbed into the co-pilot's seat, her movements fluid, her expression calm yet determined. As the ship ascended into the sky, Kaelira studied the controls with curiosity. Your technology is primitive but efficient. It's fascinating how humans have managed to adapt so quickly. Primitive? Rylan shot her a mock glare. This primitive tech just saved your life. She chuckled softly. Fair enough, but I'll still show you a few tricks when we reach the Ark. The journey to the Ark's location was uneventful, but tension hung heavy in the air. The closer they got, the more Rylan's sensors picked up faint energy fluctuations, growing stronger with each passing moment. Finally, the Ark came into view. It rose from the sands like a monolith, an enormous structure that seemed to defy logic. Its metallic surface shimmered with the same bioluminescent patterns as the sanctuary's glyphs, but on a much grander scale. Towering spires jutted into the sky, their tips glowing faintly. The Ark was partially buried, as if the desert itself had been trying to swallow it whole. Unbelievable, Rylan breathed, slowing the ship to a hover. Kaelira's expression was unreadable. It's been here for millennia, hidden in plain sight. The sands of this world protected it. Until now, Rylan brought the stellar shadow down on a flat expanse of rock near the Ark's base. As the engines powered down, he grabbed his plasma rifle and gestured for Kaelira to follow. Stay close, he said. I can take care of myself, Commander, she replied with a hint of amusement, but there was no mistaking the seriousness in her tone. The air near the Ark was charged with energy, a faint hum reverberating in Rylan's bones. The massive entrance loomed ahead, its doors sealed but covered in glowing symbols. Kaelira approached them, her hands tracing the glyphs with practiced ease. This is a security system, she said. It's scanning for life signatures. Will it let us in? Rylan asked, his grip tightening on his rifle. Kaelira tilted her head, her blue eyes narrowing as she focused. It will, but not without a price. Before Rylan could ask what she meant, the glyphs flared brightly. The ground trembled as the doors began to part, revealing a dark corridor lined with pulsating lights. A wave of cool air rushed out, carrying with it the same strange, floral scent that had accompanied Kaelira's pod. Let's move, she said, stepping into the Ark without hesitation. Rylan followed, his senses on high alert. The corridor opened into a massive chamber, its ceiling so high it seemed to disappear into darkness. The walls were covered in more glyphs, their light casting an eerie glow across the room. In the center of the chamber stood a pedestal similar to the one in the sanctuary, but larger and more elaborate. Above it floated a translucent sphere, swirling with energy. "That's the Ark's core," Kaelira said, her voice hushed. "It's the heart of this entire structure. Whoever controls it controls everything the Ark contains." "And what exactly does it contain?" Rylan asked, scanning the room for any signs of danger. "Knowledge, weapons, technology. Enough to reshape the galaxy or destroy it," Kaelira replied, her tone grim. As they approached the core, Rylan's sensors picked up movement. He raised his rifle, his visor, scanning the shadows. "We're not alone," he said. Kaelira froze, her eyes narrowing. "Whoever activated the Ark, they're still here." A figure stepped into the light, their presence sending a chill down Rylan's spine. They were clad in armor far more advanced than his own, its dark surface rippling like liquid metal. A helmet obscured their face, but their voice was cold and mechanical. "So, you've come to claim the Ark," the figure said, their tone dripping with disdain. Rylan leveled his rifle. "Depends on who's asking." The figure ignored him, their attention focused solely on Kaelira. "You shouldn't be here, Luminaris. This place is beyond you." Kaelira's expression hardened. "And you shouldn't exist, Synth." Rylan glanced between them. "Care to fill me in?" "The Synth are an offshoot of my people," Kaelira explained, her voice steady. "They abandoned emotion and individuality, choosing instead to merge with technology. They're relentless, logical, and dangerous." The Synth tilted their head, as if amused. "We are evolution perfected, and you, Kaelira, are obsolete." Before Rylan could react, the Synth raised a hand. A pulse of energy shot out, striking the ground at their feet and sending him and Kaelira sprawling. Rylan scrambled to his feet, firing his rifle. The Synth moved with inhuman speed, dodging the shots effortlessly. "Stay behind me," Rylan shouted, his instincts kicking in. Kaelira ignored him, her focus on the Ark's core. She sprinted toward it, her movements a blur. "Kaelira, what are you doing?" Rylan yelled, ducking behind a pillar as the Synth launched another energy pulse. "I'm ending this," she called back, her hands reaching for the core. The glyphs on the walls flared brighter, the entire chamber shaking as she made contact with the swirling energy. The Synth let out a distorted scream, their movements faltering as the Ark's power surged. "Rylan," Kaelira shouted, "I need you now." Rylan didn't hesitate. He charged toward the core, dodging another energy pulse and firing a final shot at the Synth, forcing them to retreat into the shadows. As he reached Kaelira, the core's energy enveloped them both. For a moment, everything went white, and then the Ark spoke. "Welcome, Luminaris and human. The legacy awaits." Chapter 4. The Legacy Unveiled. Rylan blinked as the blinding light faded, his vision gradually adjusting to the surreal scene before him. He and Kaelira stood in a vast, ethereal expanse, the physical confines of the Ark's chamber seemingly dissolved. The air shimmered like liquid glass, and the ground beneath them pulsed with faint energy, as though the structure itself were alive. "Where are we?" Rylan asked, his voice echoing unnaturally in the void. Kaelira's silvery hair floated weightlessly around her as she turned in slow wonder. "Inside the Ark's neural interface. It's alive in a way, and it's reacting to us." Before Rylan could reply, a figure materialized before them. It wasn't the Synth. This being radiated calm, its form translucent and shimmering with shifting patterns of light. Its appearance was neither fully humanoid nor completely alien, its features morphing fluidly as if it was a reflection of every intelligent species in existence. "Greetings," the entity said, its voice a harmonious blend of tones that resonated in the air and within their minds. "I am the Sentinel, guardian of the Ark's legacy. You have been granted access due to your unique bond, a connection between two disparate species." Rylan tightened his grip on his rifle, unsure whether to feel awed or alarmed. Unique bond? We just got here. The Sentinel tilted its head slightly, the lights within its form shifting. Your paths converge for a reason. Together, you represent the balance the galaxy has lost. Logic tempered by emotion, individuality harmonized with unity. The Ark's knowledge is yours to wield, but only if you are prepared for its burden. Kaelira stepped forward, her expression a mix of awe and determination. What knowledge? What burden? The Sentinel gestured, and the space around them transformed. They were suddenly surrounded by holographic images, scenes of alien worlds, civilizations rising and falling, battles waged across the stars. The Ark is a repository of the Precursor's greatest achievements, the Sentinel explained. Their technology, their history, their failures. But it is also a weapon, a failsafe created to protect the balance of life in the galaxy. Rylan watched as one of the holograms showed a planet being consumed by a cascading wave of energy, entire cities disintegrating in an instant. His stomach turned. That doesn't look like balance. That looks like annihilation. The Sentinel's tone remained neutral. The Ark's power can be used to create or destroy. It responds to the intent of its wielder. In the wrong hands, it could unmake worlds. In the right hands, it could unite them. Kaelira's gaze hardened. And the Synth wanted for destruction. They believe only their way of existence is valid. Correct, the Sentinel confirmed. The Synth have already begun their campaign of assimilation. They will use the Ark to eliminate all who resist. Rylan's jaw clenched. Then why show it to us? If it's so dangerous, why not just destroy it? The Sentinel's form flickered slightly, as though reacting to his question. Destruction of the Ark would result in catastrophic destabilization of the systems it supports. It is not merely a tool. It is intertwined with the life it helped to seed across the galaxy. Kaelira stepped closer to the Sentinel. You said we were granted access because of our bond. What does that mean? The Sentinel's form grew brighter, its shifting patterns slowing to a steady rhythm. The Ark requires two bearers, two beings who embody both divergence and unity. Together, you must decide how its power will be used. Alone, either of you would fail. Rylan exchanged a glance with Kaelira. No pressure or anything, he muttered. Kaelira smiled faintly, though her expression remained serious. What do we need to do? The Sentinel extended a hand-like projection, and two glowing spheres of energy materialized before them. One was a deep, pulsing blue, the other a fiery gold. These are the keys to the Ark's core, the Sentinel said. Each of you must take one and merge it with your essence. This will bind you to the Ark and grant you access to its full capabilities. Rylan eyed the spheres warily. And if we don't? The Ark will remain dormant, the Sentinel replied. But the Synth will not stop. They will find another way to breach its defenses. And when they do, there will be no one to oppose them. Kaelira reached for the blue sphere without hesitation. As her hand closed around it, the energy flowed into her, illuminating her silver skin and causing the glyphs on the walls to momentarily flare with light. She exhaled sharply, her eyes glowing faintly as the energy settled within her. Rylan hesitated, his gaze fixed on the golden sphere. I'm just a soldier, he said quietly. I'm not cut out for this kind of responsibility. Kaelira placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch grounding him. You're more than just a soldier, Rylan. You've already proven that. The galaxy needs people like you. People who care, who fight for what's right. Rylan met her gaze, her confidence in him rekindling something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. With a deep breath, he reached out and took the golden sphere. The energy surged into him, coursing through his veins like liquid fire. He staggered slightly, but Kaelira steadied him. The Ark responded instantly. The chamber around them vibrated as the glyphs pulsed in unison. The Sentinel's form dissolved, its voice echoing in their minds one final time. The legacy is now yours. Protect it well. The holographic expanse vanished, and they found themselves back in the Ark's physical chamber. The core pulsed brightly, its energy synchronized with the two of them. Is it done? Rylan asked, still catching his breath. Kaelira nodded, her glowing eyes scanning the room. "We're bound to the Ark now. Its power is ours to command." Before they could process the magnitude of what had just happened, a sharp alarm blared through the chamber. "Hostile entities detected," an automated voice announced. Rylan's heart sank. The Synth, the main doors of the Ark burst open, and a squad of Synth soldiers marched in, their liquid metal armor gleaming ominously. At their head was the same Synth they'd encountered earlier, their voice cold and mocking. "You were fools to activate the Ark," the Synth leader said, raising a weapon that crackled with energy. "It belongs to us now." Kaelira stepped forward, her expression resolute. "You'll have to go through us first." The Synth leader laughed darkly. "So be it." Rylan raised his rifle, adrenaline surging. The fight for the Ark and the fate of the galaxy had just begun. Chapter 5, The Final Stand. The Synth leader's laughter echoed in the chamber as their soldiers advanced, weapons raised. Rylan and Kaelira stood side by side, a mismatched pair united by purpose. The Ark's pulsating core bathed them in light, its energy resonating with their very beings. "Kaelira," Rylan said, his voice steady despite the chaos looming. "You said we could control the Ark. What does that mean, exactly?" Kaelira's glowing eyes flicked toward the core. "It means we're not alone in this fight. The Ark is alive, Rylan. It will help us if we let it." He nodded, trusting her instinct. "Then let's see what it can do." The Synth soldiers opened fire, their energy bolts streaking through the air. Rylan rolled to the side, returning fire with his rifle. The shots ricocheted off the Synth's liquid metal armor, but he noticed they moved slower as they adapted to the battlefield. Kaelira raised her hands, and the Ark seemed to respond to her command. Energy rippled from the core, forming a shimmering barrier that deflected the Synth's attacks. The soldiers hesitated, momentarily thrown off by the sudden display of power. The Synth leader's voice rang out, sharp and commanding. "Overload their barrier. Focus fire." The soldiers regrouped, their combined assault causing cracks to form in the energy shield. Kaelira winced, the strain of maintaining the barrier evident. "We can't hold them off like this," Rylan said, firing another volley. "We need to hit them where it hurts." Kaelira closed her eyes, reaching deeper into her connection with the Ark. The glowing glyphs on the walls began to shift, forming new patterns. The chamber hummed with energy, and the ground beneath the Synth soldiers trembled. Suddenly, crystalline spikes erupted from the floor, impaling several of the soldiers. The Synth leader dodged effortlessly, their fluid movements unnerving. "Clever," the leader sneered. "But not enough." The Synth leader raised their weapon, a sphere of crackling energy forming at its tip. Rylan's instincts kicked in, and he tackled Kaelira out of the way just as the blast obliterated the section of the chamber where they'd stood. "Rylan," Kaelira shouted, helping him to his feet. "I'm fine," he grunted, his armor scorched but intact. "But that thing is going to tear us apart if we don't stop it." Kaelira's gaze turned to the Ark's core, its light growing brighter as it responded to their bond. "The Ark's power isn't just defensive. It can strike back, but we have to use it together." "Together?" Rylan asked, already moving to cover her as the Synth soldiers regrouped. Kaelira took his hand, her touch grounding him. "Trust me?" Rylan nodded. "Always." They closed their eyes, focusing their combined energy on the core. The Ark responded instantly, its light enveloping them. Rylan felt a surge of power unlike anything he'd ever experienced. A connection not only to Kaelira but to the Ark itself, as though it was an extension of their will. The Synth leader froze, their gaze fixed on the glowing pair. "No," they hissed, their voice filled with rare uncertainty. The Ark's energy burst outward in a wave of light, disarming the Synth soldiers and forcing them to their knees. The leader remained standing, their weapon raised in defiance. "This isn't over," the Synth leader roared, launching another blast. But the Ark's energy intercepted it, dissolving the attack midair. Rylan and Kaelira stepped forward, their combined presence exuding an aura of unstoppable force. "This ends now," Kaelira said, her voice carrying an otherworldly resonance. The Ark's energy coalesced into a beam of light, aimed directly at the synth leader. They barely had time to react before the beam struck, their liquid metal form dissolving into nothingness. The remaining synth soldiers faltered, their connection to their leader severed. One by one, they retreated, their forms dissipating into streams of metallic vapor as they fled the chamber. As the last of the synth vanished, the Ark's light dimmed, returning the chamber to its previous calm. Rylan and Kaelira collapsed to their knees, the strain of wielding the Ark's power catching up with them. "It's over," Rylan said, his voice hoarse. Kaelira smiled faintly, her silver skin glowing softly. "For now." They looked at the Ark's core, its steady pulse a reminder of the power they now bore responsibility for. "What happens next?" Rylan asked, helping Kaelira to her feet. She glanced at him, her expression thoughtful. "We protect it together." Rylan chuckled, shaking his head. "You make it sound so simple." Kaelira's smile widened. "Nothing about this will be simple, Rylan. But we've proven we can face anything, so long as we stand as one." He met her gaze, his own determination mirrored in her luminous blue eyes. "Then let's get to it." As they left the chamber, the Ark's light followed them, a silent witness to their resolve. The galaxy's future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Its greatest weapon had chosen its champions. And for the first time in centuries, hope burned brighter than fear.